Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will begin the second day of the 2020 Seoul Smart City Leaders Forum. Welcome, everyone. Hello, my name is Lee Seung-hee. I will be your MC today. Following yesterday, I have the honor to be the MC for the conference today. I would like to thank distinguished guests joining us virtually and physically from home and abroad. The conference that is taking place today, we have a very interesting program in store for you. We look forward to your participation. Today, the world is in the process of transitioning to smart cities. However, because of generational gap, poverty, income disparity, and disability and barriers, the digital divide issue is aggravating. Against this backdrop, we are gathered to discuss about how to develop an inclusive smart city, and a lot of the experts voiced that this is the road that we need to take. So it is a city not for just them, but for everyone, and this is the kind of discussion that we're going to lead today. We're going to discuss the future road to smart city. So today's conference is joined by Chairman Lee Won-mok of Seoul Digital Foundation, who will deliver opening remarks, Professor Sang Jong-sang of GSES, who will deliver congratulatory remarks, as well as keynote speech, which will be delivered by Mr. Lee Seok-gu of the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. We will talk about the outlook as well as the present status of inclusive smart city. And today's conference is being streamed live through YouTube channel. So, given that this is a virtual conference taking place, I would like to remind our participants to be mindful of their camera as well as network connectivity, and please pay special attention when muting and unmuting your microphones. Without further ado, I would like to officially start the conference. First of all, we will hear from Chairman Lee Won-mok of Seoul Digital Foundation, who will deliver his opening remarks. I would like to invite him up on stage.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lee Won-mok, Director of Seoul Digital Foundation. First of all, I would like to convey my heartfelt welcome to all participants to 2020 Seoul Smart City Leaders Conference. And also, my special thanks go to Professor Sang Jong-sang of Seoul National University Graduate School of Environmental Studies, and also Dr. Seok Woo-ri. And as we're gathered here, connected all together, with Corona-19, the need for digital is rising. And digital has already driven changes in the whole society due to the fourth industrialization and revolution. But with COVID-19, the change has become more extensive, and it has a close impact on our daily lives. And also, meanwhile, the challenges lie ahead of us, that the benefits of digital must be provided equally with all people. Still, we see the digital divide between classes, regions, and generations that is widening, creating a barrier to evenly sharing the benefits of digital city and digital technology. Therefore, we must discuss alternatives and solutions through inclusive smart city theme. And the theme of this conference is inclusive smart city, and it tries to go a step further from a technology infrastructure-centered smart city, allowing access to digital without discrimination. And it can be said in that sense to be a city where everyone can enjoy digital technology and its benefits evenly. And the city of Seoul has developed a state-of-the-art technology to create an inclusive smart city. And we also are harmoniously promoting policies to build infrastructure to enhance citizens' digital capabilities as the owner of the city and infrastructure. Technology infrastructure refers to the Smart Seoul platform that can promote convergence and development between technologies, and that can also expand various services. The Smart Seoul platform covers various new technology areas such as big data, AI, IoT, security, and 3D map, focusing on the SNET business that builds Seoul a super connected city through high-speed network and Wi-Fi. In particular, the SNET project is being promoted with the goal of establishing the infrastructure for future smart cities and expanding the citywide high-quality public Wi-Fi with Wi-Fi 6 technology to fully guarantee the basic right of communication for Seoul citizens. The city of Seoul is pushing ahead with measures to strengthen digital capabilities so that all citizens living in the city can use digital freely on the physical infrastructure of Smart Seoul. We also operate a digital learning center within the citizens' living area so that all Seoul citizens can receive digital education anytime, anywhere, and promote the on-the-go education and non-face-to-face online education in parallel. We plan to develop, in that sense, customized content to enhance digital education and to operate a kiosk experience zone with high demand for citizens and implement a new educational model using robots. The 2020 Seoul Smart City Leaders Conference is very meaningful in that sense because it shares this model of Seoul at home and abroad and discusses the direction of development with various citizens and experts connected all over the world. In addition, I hope that this will be a meaningful time for all citizens of our city who watch through YouTube to have an interest in an inclusive smart city. So I would like to ask for your heated discussion and also insightful presentations. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Director. And now you can regain your seat. Thank you once again for your remarks. A smart city where every citizen can enjoy technology without discrimination. That was the main message of his remarks. And moving on, we would like to invite Professor and Director Song Jong-sang of the Seoul National University Graduate School of Environment Studies. Please.
Thank you very much. I am from the GSES of Seoul National University. I'm Song Jong-sang. So many cities around the world are indeed platforms harmonizing different civilizations, and it is indeed the venue for our everyday lives. In 2050, 6% of the entire population will be living in cities. So cities will become increasingly relevant in our lives. So with the advancement of technology and civilization, cities have become more effective, and its effectiveness or efficacy will improve in the future. But not only that, in terms of traffic and other urban issues, we're seeing its increase in numbers. And smart cities can become the solution to address these urban problems. We can leverage latest technologies to overcome urban problems, like in the fields of healthcare, housing, safety, and we can improve relevant public services, especially with the unprecedented COVID-19. The world is faced with unprecedented challenges. In order to overcome these challenges, we have to develop, of course, vaccines, but we also have to make our cities smarter and more intelligent. So with the COVID-19, we have actually been exposed to a lot of urban problems that we had forgotten for a long time. And the neoliberalism and neoliberalistic capitalism has also shown some negative impacts and effects. And we have to come to raise fundamental questions about the roles of cities and become aware of the income disparity, the difference between production, balance between production and distribution. And all of these issues have made us to change our mindset as well as our behaviors. In that sense, I believe that the 2020 Seoul Smart City Leaders Conference is very timely, and it will be very meaningful in that regard. We are gathered here in presence of not only Seoul Metropolitan Government, but also many cities and city representatives to share our practical strategies and experiences so that we can seek better solutions for the future. For that, our graduate school has also jointly organized this conference. I would like to also thank Mr. Lee Won-mok of Seoul Digital Foundation for your support in putting together today's conference. And I would like to especially thank Mr. Lee Seok-gu, Associate Director of NIST, as well as Professor Lim Young. I met you last year. I'm very happy to see you again this year. And we have Mr. Fernando Villarino from Europe, and we have a professor from Indonesia joining us as well. So regarding Smart City, we have many experts and panelists who will be joining us to provide their input. I'd like to thank the professors as well as members of the civil society, the students. I would also like to thank Professor Lee Young-sung from GSCS, as well as Mr. Kim Sung-han and Ms. Kang Yoon-kyung of Seoul Digital Foundation for your support. So the core to human history is that we always had the effort and the commitment to overcome unprecedented challenges. If you look at the human history, so I believe that the COVID-19 will become a very important impetus for us to overcome the current challenges. And amidst this turmoil of COVID-19, we have seen some goodwill that's been practiced by some people. And Smart City will also capture this kind of opportunities and value. And Smart City will indeed play a very important role in spreading this type of value. And we have to respect the human values and life and dignity. And this is something that smart cities need to pursue as well. So we're stepping towards a very promising future, and I believe that today's conference will become a beacon that will shed light for our future. Although it is taking place virtually, I hope that all the participants in this conference will be able to share the promising vision of smart cities, and I hope that we'll be able to share very promising insights. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was Professor Song Jong-sang for his very insightful remarks. As he said, so he has actually highlighted the importance of today's conference and the meaning of today's conference, and also extended his appreciation to the participants. Now moving on to the keynote speech. Keynote speech will be done by Mr. Lee Seok-gu, who is the Associate Director of NIST in the United States. He's going to join us virtually. If you're ready, please go ahead.
Hello everyone. It's very nice to be here. And thanks for listening to this presentation. And this, I'm sure, is an exciting day for the city of Seoul, and at the same time, all the smart city stakeholders in the world. So my name is Seok-gu Ri, and I am Associate Director for Cyber Physical Systems Innovation at National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is part of U.S. Department of Commerce. And I'm going to talk about smart cities and Internet of Things, which is an extremely exciting and incredibly important topic. So let's start with the question: what is a smart city, and what is a smart community? There are a lot of definitions out there, but one exemplary description that we use in NIST is this: cities and communities using smart technologies such as Internet of Things, which you call IoT, and cyber physical systems, which you call CPS, to improve the quality of life for their residents. This is important because you have to pay attention to two things in this description. First thing is, you want to use smart technologies. That's approach to a smart city. And importantly, you have to remember the goal of smart city is not the technology itself. It's about improving quality of life for their residents. So we talked about what the smart city is. So what does it look like? Why do we even talk about IoT and smart city in the same context? So this is how we look at IoT. And there are, of course, a lot of different definitions of IoT out there. But really, there are four layers in IoT. At the bottom, there is a physical layer, physical systems layer. This is where all the things that you talk about, sensors and actuators, and sometimes things, large things like cars and airplanes and drones and things like that. And then on top of that, there is this communications layer. You connect these things through communications, 5G, Wi-Fi, and Zigbee, and LoRa, and whatsoever. And then on top of that, there is the data analytics layer. You collect the data from the bottom two layers, and then analyze it and extract useful and actionable information. On top of it, there is probably the most important layer, which is called the human and services layer. This is where the decision is made. And when decision is made, either the action is taken automatically or the action is taken by a person, by a human. So if you superimpose or overlay these four layers onto a municipality, onto a public sector, cities and communities, then it becomes a smart city. Typically, these bottom two layers are called infrastructure, or top two layers are applications. Okay, so where are they? There are literally hundreds and probably thousands of smart cities out there, or smart city projects out there in the world. So virtually it is impossible to come up with a comprehensive list of smart cities. But this is what we have collected anecdotally through a NIST program called the Global City Teams Challenge between 2014 to 2019. This is just a partial list, and we have identified and nurtured over 200 smart city projects around the world. And as you can see, it's all around the world. There are large cities like New York City and San Francisco, Washington, D.C., but there are very small cities like Greenville and South Carolina, or Newport News, Virginia, which is probably around 10,000 people, a little bit more than that. So it is important to remember there are larger cities doing smart city projects around the world, but there are also small cities and towns and even rural areas working on smart city projects. And it's not just the United States, obviously. There are a lot of cities in Europe working on smart city, and also Asia, including Seoul, that is hosting this program today. And by the way, this map is anecdotal map, meaning we have collected voluntarily from the cities around the world, but doesn't mean that this is a comprehensive list. So now we know where they are. So what are deployment models? How do they deploy these smart cities around the world? Here in this question, depending on where you live, which city it is, the models are very different. In the United States, deployment model is very much bottom-up, meaning cities and communities and individual municipal government take the lead. They come up with a business model, they work with stakeholders, and they even come up with a financing model. So the role of the federal government in this case is coordination and obviously creating, facilitating collaboration, and then convening those cities to share and information changes, and to some extent help them to identify best practices and replicate those successes. Now, Asia is very different. It's very top-down process. Typically, central government comes up with a budget and a strategy and planning, and they either pick cities or they work with cities, and they provide a bulk of the financing to make it work. Europe is more of a mix model. Some of them are from top down, some of them are from bottom up. Now, regardless of whatever model you have, there is a common issue in smart city globally. A lot of smart city projects are one-off projects, meaning that you emphasize on customization and you emphasize on the specific application for each city. But what that comes out, what that results in is a lack of well-established processes and best practices. What that means is city projects are very isolated and they do not enjoy the economies of scale. So from industry perspective, this is a nightmare scenario because you cannot come up with a service and product that can cover 70–80% of cities in the world. This is a big problem. So what are other issues and challenges in smart cities? So first, the most important issues and probably opportunities, opportunity is a public-private collaboration. This is one of the most unique characteristics in smart cities, because you cannot do this just by industry. You cannot do this just by government. You have to have a balanced and a close correlation and collaboration between the government and industry. And this causes a lot of issues itself, because public sector and private sector, they have different perspectives in many cases. Now, funding model is a big issue. Asia, usually funding model is much more straightforward because it's top-down model. In the United States, is a big problem, because every city virtually should figure out how to finance such as smart city projects. And also lack of best practices and standards is pretty much everywhere. A lot of the standards are out there, standards, self-defined standards out there, but there's really very few standards which are adopted broadly and in scale. Now, security and privacy issues, this is big issue. We don't have to even talk about it. That is utmost concern for many cities. Now, another problem is the issue of what we call integration of infrastructure, because many smart city projects and smart city programs are related to certain services that cities provide, like transportation, public safety, and so on. The question is, when they are siloed, they cannot provide a maximum benefit to the residents. So you gotta somehow figure out how to integrate them, how to make them more efficient as a collaborated sectors or together. That is a big problem. How do we do that? And last but not least, what I already mentioned, which is called the fragmentation and lack of economic scale. This is probably the biggest problem that we have in smart cities. So NIST has been working on the issue of this fragmentation. And this is not going to help anybody, because if you are all fragmented, if every city does their own thing, eventually companies will not going to be able to grow the market, meaning you're not going to be able to enjoy, again, economies of scale. So how do you address the issue? So NIST has employed or created two programs to address that. We fundamentally encourage stakeholders, encourage partnerships, collaboration, and so on. But to specifically address the smart city market, so we created two programs. One is called the Global City Teams Challenge, which is called GCTC. It's a market-driven approach to create consensus. Second program is what we call Smart Cities and Communities Framework, which is SCCF. It's a technology-driven program at NIST. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that exactly means. So Global City Teams Challenge, GCTC, is a program led by NIST, but in collaboration with other U.S. federal agencies, including NTIA and DHS and even NASA and so on. So the goal is to establish and demonstrate replicable, scalable, and sustainable model for smart city deployment. It is important to remember these three words: replicability. You don't want to have a smart city just for that city. You want to have a model that is replicable to many other cities. It has to be scalable. Something may work in the lab, but may not work in the real world. So you do not want to rely on theory. You should come with something more scalable, bigger than just a couple of test beds. Now, it has to be sustainable, especially financially sustainable, because you may deploy something, but then if it is not financially sustainable, then you may not be able to keep going with the service. So how do we do this? So in GCTC, the approach we take is pretty simple. Instead of each city working on the project one by one, we invite and we work with the cities around the world to come up with common requirements, to come up with a consensus-based requirements and projects, autonomous vehicles, traffic congestion, and so on. So instead of every city working on their own traffic congestion management project, we like the cities to share their problems together and come up with a more scalable and best practices. And we come up with the companies, universities, and collaboration with the nonprofits. And we group them together to something called action clusters and super clusters. And then whatever comes out of it, by definition, can be shared by many cities in the world. So that was the what we call GCTC, Global City Teams Challenge. And through that process, as we have already shown, we identified and created over 200 projects working with the 200 local governments in the world. And then we learned a lot through the process, and we created a lot through the process. So now it's time to aggregate it. It's time to distill the best practices out of all these different projects and come up with a document or publication that can be shared much more broadly by thousands of cities. That's called SCCF, NIST Smart Cities and Communities Framework Program. So the goal is pretty simple: build and develop a collection of technical guidelines and best practices that can be shared by as many cities and as many communities in the world as possible. So to make it work, we have identified, again, this is not what you identified just us. This has been identified through the 5 years of the process of Global City Teams Challenge, out of the real deployments and real projects around over 200 cities around the world, which is scattered around over 25 countries around the world. So first category is cross-cutting and foundational themes, which means it's a theme that that's related to every sector. So themes like data, platforms, and KPIs, key performance indicators, and cybersecurity and privacy and IoT connectivity issues. Those are cross-cutting themes. There's a vertical and more sector-specific themes like transportation, public safety, and utility, and agriculture, and rural projects, and so on. And third category is methods and approaches. Okay, how do we get there? What are the collaboration mechanisms? What are the innovation ways to build more innovation capacity? And how do we do procurement? What is the economic sustainability models and so on? And category 4 is a case study. So what are the real world examples that we can provide as a best practices so that other cities around the world can start working with it. It is important to note that no two cities are the same. So you have to always keep in mind that some parts of these such best practices can be reused and replicated, but some of them may not be. So roughly speaking, I would say about 60 to 70% of the smart city structure in the smart city, any smart city projects are what you call foundational elements. Those foundational elements can be shared and replicated in many other cities. But there's this 30 to 40% on top of that you have to customize. You have to custom tailor to your city. But it is so the goal is for us is to identify the 60 to 70% that cities and communities in the world can share, so that they can take it and build the 30 to 40% on top of it. It's much better than starting from scratch and building everything from 0%. So roughly speaking, this is how we organize this smart cities and communities framework. And as you can see, there's cross-cutting themes and sectors, and also case studies, and also the implementation details. We are working on publishing or authoring these documents, and we are in early stage. This project has started only a few months ago, about a year ago actually. So we will keep working as a NIST, and along with everybody and all the stakeholders globally around the world. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions or any, you want to know more about this information, then you can visit this website and you can reach out to me directly. And thank you very much. This has been an exciting, opportunity to work with the cities around the world. But at the same time, this conference you are in, I believe it will, I hope it's going to serve as a catalyst to bring in all the global stakeholders into the world, and not just to Seoul and Korea. And maybe we can share our experiences and our models with a lot of the other cities around the world which is in need of such the common shares and information. So thank you very much. Again, appreciate it again. It's been a pleasure, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
네, 감사드립니다. 이렇게 저희 기조 연설
Thank you very much for delivering the insightful keynote speech.
자, 지금부터는 저희 본격적으로
And from now on, we will begin the first session of the
하는데요.
conference in
이번
earnest.
주제는
The
포용적
theme
스마트
of the
시티와
first session is inclusive smart city
해당
and
주제로
big
함께
data.
이야기를 나눠볼
Under the
연사분들
topic,
지금부터
and
소개해
we
올리겠습니다.
have several
먼저
speakers awaiting.
자장이신 서울대학교
First, we have
환경개혁연구소
Chairman
이영성
Professor
교수님
Lee Young-sung
소개드립니다.
of
교수님,
GSES of
안녕하십니까?
Seoul National National University. Good afternoon. Well, Professor, you have extensively carried out the various researches on smart cities, so I am very much looking forward to your insightful opinions. And moving on, we have Professor Lee Jung-hoon, and Chairman of Seoul Smart City Committee. And thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to your opinions and discussions. And next to him, we have fellow Kim In-hwan of Asia Energy Environment Sustainability Research Institute. Good afternoon. And we have speakers connected virtually. We have Professor In Nong of Tsinghua University of China.
Thank you very much for your time today. Hello. 네, 잠시 후에 저희가 발표를 네, 잠시 후에
I'm loading my material. Just a second.
잠시 후에 저희가 발표를 또 이어가 보도록 하겠습니다.
All right,
네,
we will
계속해서
listen to his presentation in a few minutes, and we have fellow Baek Nam-chol of Korean Institute of Civil Engineering and Building. Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for your participation. And without further ado, we will now begin the first session. Chairperson, now the floor is yours. Yes, I am Lee Young-sung, Professor of GSES of Seoul National University. The topic of this session is Inclusive Smart City. Well, referring to that concept, I think one of the key words that we cannot miss out is big data. So that's why for the first session, we will deal with big data and smart city. We have two speakers, as introduced just before. Professor Lee Jung-hoon from Yonsei University will talk about the best practice of Seoul City, and Professor In Nong of Tsinghua University will deliver the case of China. So we do not have much time, but so we will right away listen to Professor Lee Jung-hoon. Good afternoon. Very nice to meet you all. As introduced, my name is Lee Jung-hoon. I am the chairperson of Smart City Committee of Seoul Metropolitan Government. And the content that I would like to share today can be resumed in two sessions or two topics. First, Seoul Metropolitan Government's policies and its direction related to Smart City. And secondly, I will share some Smart City cases or best practices. Well, at first, when we started to study smart city, well, it was around several years ago already for Seoul Metropolitan Government, and with the outbreak of COVID-19, we have highlighted the importance of inclusiveness of smart city. So we came up with the idea of digital divide that could impact on the quality of life of our citizens. So we came up with some services that could enhance the quality of life of our citizens. That was the main pillar of our policies and smart service and smart citizen. And under these pillars, we have 6 platforms established as key strategies. So IoT, big data, AI, and blockchain are included. Some of the elements of Fourth Industrial Revolution. So these will be served as platform for urban growth of Seoul Metropolitan Government. And also last year, Seoul City held a Smart City World Congress and Expo, and we competed with 45 organizations and cities all over the world, and we got awarded thanks to infrastructure and big data used widely to come up with an efficient smart city establishment, and also cooperation or coordination system was highly evaluated during the competition. I would say that Seoul City is one of the leading smart cities, and it was proved by the award. Well, amongst many projects being carried out by Seoul City is Allied's SNET. As you see here, this is a film called Parasite, swept off many awards and prizes at Oscar this year. And as you see, there's a sister and brother, and they try to catch a Wi-Fi network under the basement house. So this shows the challenge of internet access, which is coming from digital divide. Even though many efforts are existing by ourselves, but we try to enhance the access to communication, and that's the basic rights of communication for citizens, and that's the basic concept we try to seek in our policy. And the 30% of Seoul City, in terms of surface, provides public Wi-Fi free of charge, but by 2020, our goal is to enhance that ratio to 100%. So more than 10,000 public Wi-Fi stations will be added up, and 4,237 kilometers of coverage will be established so that all citizens of Seoul City can secure the access to the internet network free of charge. And what we try to target first is to establish free Wi-Fi in every public buses running around the city, and all public facilities will be equipped with free Wi-Fi under this policy, so that we can be ready for the coming fourth industrial revolution. And as you all know, other smart cities, in terms of competency or competitiveness, Seoul is highly evaluated in its integrated infrastructure. The super connected city or super connected network can allow diverse ecosystems and projects to be propelled by stakeholders. And what we try to focus on is data. In terms of data, Seoul City has gathered many electronic information and accumulated. And recently, IoT, or it is also called the Data of Things by Seoul Metropolitan Government, IoT and DOT are parallelly carrying out big data projects, and around 50,000 stations are installed so that we can monitor environmental changes and air quality, and the real-time based IoT informations are gathered here so that we can facilitate and enhance the effectiveness of administrative affairs, and that could be another electronic government or intelligent electronic government in a more advanced term. And also, with that, private data and public data are combined on our big data platform, and that's also a test bed or a pilot project through which we try to figure out valuable data where we could extract values from ordinary data. And one of the topics that we have been highlighting is that transparency, responsibility, and agileness despite of COVID-19 environment. Against COVID-19, from the web page of Seoul Metropolitan Government, we try to track the movement of the infected people, and also monitoring call system is in place so that we can check the status of confirmed people, and this is an automatic or automated monitoring system that can gather the information of confirmed cases. Well, this system has not been established in a day. Before, we've already had a Dasan call system in place, and it got advanced with the advent of COVID-19. The productivity of Seoul Metropolitan Government officials is also advanced. Well, I have touched upon 3 projects to now. 6S project, which is a Seoul City's platform strategy and data policy direction, and also real cases or responses to COVID-19. And During the second part of my presentation, I would like to share some cases of inclusive smart city of Seoul metropolitan government. Globally, Yonsei University selects around 20 cities every year. And last year, out of 20 smart cities, the area that dealt with a smart city, inclusive smart city in particular, was only 7%. And Seoul recorded 14% of areas where an inclusive smart city concept is engaged in terms of well-being and social services. And well, there are several cities you can see on the screen where no social welfare or health services are considered in a smart and inclusive cities concept, but this will be enhanced day by day so that the smart city concept can be widely used in public sectors as well. And let me show you several cases of Seoul City based on IoT. We have IoT-based healthcare service for the elderly, which is being carried out in 9 different districts now. Using IoT, we can provide care services with chronic disease, people with chronic diseases, and we also monitor them so that we can dispatch an emergency ambulance when there's an emergency call. And we also have a project called Smart Plug for senior care service. All equipment and home appliances are connected to this smart plug. So the goal is to measure and analyze the running time and power usage of each electronic device of especially the elderly who live by themselves without any family members. So one of the death reasons of these elderly people is that they fall off without any family members to take care of them. So that's why we monitor them on a real-time basis with Smart Plug. And this Smart Plug project is under operation in 2 different districts. With the accumulation of information, relevant information from these projects, we gather information how to provide more efficient services with these elderly single-person households. That's one of the important aspects of smart city. And recently, the concept of social robot has come to our mind, and we're getting ready for this area as well. And with the arrival of untapped area coming from COVID-19, the need for robot is growing. For example, in Gangdong-gu district and other 4 districts, we are running this social AI robot service. And this robot is called Liku, and Liku tells and teaches the elderly how to use digital devices so to narrow digital divide. And these AI robots are the contents of education, and the big data analytics is also applied to this robot system so that we can enhance the system quality. And in a big map, we have another project in Seongdong-gu, Wangsimri. This project is called Barrier-Free Smart Trans City. This is on the planning stage, but still we are approaching from the perspective of welfare or well-being for the elderly and the disabled or the marginalized of the city, with an advanced transportation system so that they can enjoy public transportation system without discrimination. And the last topic or last case that I would like to share most importantly is about inclusiveness of smart city. And for inclusive growth, we definitely need citizens' engagement and citizens' education. That engagement cannot be stopped as a mere participation, but that should be a co-creating process so that we can think of new solutions and innovations, and that process is definitely needed for all. So that's why Seoul City has created Big Data Campus where many students and citizens can gather and also create necessary data. The maps that you are seeing on the screen are showing the current status of the elderly of each district. So this data is made on an open platform or open data system. For example, in Sangdong-gu district, we have Safe School Zone service. And for this project, only 70 citizens, Sangdong-gu district people, have participated in to figure out how to render school zone safer and secure, more secured. And in Gangseogu district, advanced technologies are widely applied. And as you know, Magok area is a testbed of smart city of Seoul metropolitan government. And IoT sensors in this area and big data analytics are used to create citizen engaged community map. For example, fine particles map. And citizens just experience an innovative process and they get to know about climate changes and they try to consider the common issues of their district and moreover the city. And the last conclusion is composed of three main points. First, to carry out a smart city project, we need to establish a private and public cooperation system in various areas. We have 25 districts, and they have to collaborate or cooperate with Seoul metropolitan government to apply new advanced technologies to serve better the citizens suffering from digital divide. And secondly, we need IoT, big data, AI widely used to foster smart citizens to establish a smart, inclusive smart city. To that end, we should foster many expert young people, and for example, students, and the role of schools are very much important in resolving urban problems. And lastly, we need to create social values on the basis of innovative ecosystem, and we need to facilitate social entrepreneurship so that we can build a sustainable, inclusive, smart city. And that rounds up my presentation. And we have a smart city report that can be downloaded, so please have a look at it to know how smart cities are being established over in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee, for your presentation. I learned a lot from your presentation, although I'm a Seoul citizen. And you mentioned about I actually first learned about SNET today. So every Seoul citizen should be able to have access to Wi-Fi for free of charge. I think it's a very good idea. You mentioned about Gangdong-gu, Sangdong-gu, and other districts, and there's inclusive smart city cases. But when it comes to inclusive smart city, I think it varies according to different countries and different cities around the world. And of course, there could be a Korean type of inclusive smart city, but maybe there will be also a Chinese type of inclusive smart city. So I would like to now invite Professor Ying Long, who is an expert in the field, and he's very well aware of Korea's situation. But today he's going to share with us case of China. You have the floor, Professor Ying Long.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Professor Lee, for the invitation. And for me, I'm quite delighted to be here, I mean virtually rather physically. And I like to show our thinkings about smart city and the future smart city. Actually, last December, I think, I also visited Songdonggu in Seoul City, and I was quite impressed by the cases you have conducted in Korea. I mean, quite impressive, and we appreciate a lot. Yeah, sorry. I also like to say hello to Professor Sung, from Seoul National University. Hi. And next, I like to talk about our report together with the internet company Tencent. I mean, I think three months ago, Tencent and my lab in Tsinghua University, we together released the report about the future cities from the lens of space. Since I am Department of City Planning, I mean School of Architecture. So for me, when I am talking about smart city, I am quite interested with city space. So when we are talking about smart city or technologies, actually, currently we are in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. I think we are in the first. And I believe every generation of technologies has exerted very impactful influence on our city space. So here we have the profile for the technology together with the ideal cities. And in my report, together with Tencent, for the smart city of future city, we are trying, here I like to show you the methodologies we have been using for generating the report. First, we were looking at the past 10 years. Actually, for example, so if I came to right now from the 10 years ago, and maybe I am quite impressive or quite strange with the conference today. I mean, we can enjoy the conference or the meeting virtually and physically. So my philosophy is, what is the future city? I think the present condition is also the future city. Currently, we have a lot of changes. I mean, comparing to the past. So we observe the past and we pay some more attention to the future. And we are looking at the future city space. What will the future cities be looking like? From different dimensions, like regional scale and city scale. From different aspects, like housing, work, leisure, and transport. So that is the methodology for our past report. And I also believe some emerging or disruptive technologies like the AI, big data, mobile internet, sensor network, or Internet of Things, all have played a very important role in forming the future city. And actually, we also have the biotech, new materials. They are all the very important elements for smart city or future city. So those, technologies are the technologies I considered in that report. So first, I like to discuss the city scale. For example, for the residential dimension for the city space, I think maybe a quarter or 1/3 space in cities are for residential or for housing. Currently, we have a lot of new things like Airbnb, and we also have the short-term or middle-term apartment for rent. So that are the new elements in our city. So what is, so-called living in a city, and what will the living in a city be looking like in the future? We are quite interested. And followed by the so-called work. I think how to work together with whom we work, and where to work, what time to work. I think the working has to be redefined in such a circumstance. For example, during the very serious time of COVID-19 in Beijing and in China, in this March or February, almost all the office buildings in CBD in Beijing were vacant. Nobody. So I think we should redefine working, and we also need redefine the working space, like work from home. I mean, currently it is very popular in some countries. And work from the third place, like cafeteria, like in some shopping mall, for example, even in restaurant, and maybe in the so-called autonomous vehicles in the future. So maybe. So when the how to work and where to work, what time to work is redefined, I think our city space should be redefined as well. And followed by the shopping, for example, currently we have so many takeaway services in China and in some countries in the world. And we also have a lot of delivery services and even the unmanned offline service. For example, the grocery and convenience store with no people, with no waiter or waitress. So that is, I mean, the shopping space is looking like currently. And we have our vision. What will the shopping place in the future be looking like? So we are quite interested in the report. We have some of our answers in that report. And we are also quite more interested with the so-called play. I think live, work, play are all the most important functions for our cities, for livable cities. I think how to play, where to play, together with whom to play, should also and have also been redefined. So if it is the truth, what will the open space, for example, and leisure places be looking like in the future? Should we play online only, or should we play virtually in the online space? What will the play spaces in the city be looking like? I think that is also our interest in our report. So in the previous slides, I have been trying to propose, rather answer the question in my talk today. Actually, we have some of our answers from ourselves or from our life in the report. Actually, it is already online. I will show you the link later. And here, I like to think about how to develop the smart city, how to develop the spaces in a smart city. Since as far as I know, from my lab's interest, we are quite interested with the city space. So here I have one diagram. So first, before how to develop a city, I think real estate developers and designers, urban planners are very important role in that process. So how about the smart city? How to develop the urban spaces in smart city? I think in addition to real developers and designers actually, we are witnessing an era. More and more stakeholders like technology companies like Tencent, Huawei, Baidu, Alibaba in China, they are quite interested with developing the physical smart city, maybe a physical smart new town in China. There are some ongoing projects which I also have participated to some degree, I think. And currently, there are also some mobile phone operator like Mobile China Telecom. They also have great willingness in joining developing physical spaces in smart city. So that is what happening in China right now. And the other diagram I show you here. Actually, for developing a city, we need spatial intervention, like the physical planning and the physical design of spatial design. And we also have the public participation process, like placemaking. My philosophy is, I think in the future, or in the close future, we also need the digital innovation technology to combine with the traditional or conventional processes. So that is my philosophy on how to develop the physical spaces in smart city in China, I think. And lastly, I also like to show you some empirical cases that we are the ongoing projects we together with internet companies in China actually. For example, we have our lab has been substantially and extensively collaborating with internet companies in China. They give us data. So in this way, we can regard the city as a lab. So that is our strategy on understanding urbanizing China, what we do. Like we collect Baidu, Tencent, they give us some data. We understand our spaces. And lastly, we also believe, since we are in the era of COVID-19, which we don't like actually, and we also have to some degree, we have summarized what helped during our combating with COVID-19 in China in the past months. Maybe not planners, maybe not designers. I think they have been working together. We have summarized some smart technologies, what they have helped for different dimensions of the combating process. So for the WeSpace report, we have already uploaded we have the English full version report online. We also have the brief version, we also have the Chinese version. If you have more interested, if you are interested with our answers for the future city space or the future smart cities from the spatial dimension, you can download it directly. And I think it is also available online at Tencent. So that is my presentation. Yes, thank you so much. Have a good day.
예, 잉농 교수님 대단히 감사합니다.
Well, thank you very much, Professor
아까도
Ing-nong.
말씀드렸습니다만은
Well, as commented just before, an inclusive smart city
국가 간의 지역 간의
needs
접근하는 방식이 상당히 다를 수가 있는데요. 그럼에도
could have
불구하고
different approaches depending on public sector, private sectors, and countries. But in terms of using technologies for the betterment of human being, there's a sure commonality.
풍부한 논의를 진행하기
Well,
위해서
to have an ample discussion from now on, we would like to delve into deep
세 분을 모셨는데요. 서울대학교 지속가능
topics
연구소의
of
김민환
the
박사님,
smart city. We have three panelists.
백남철 박사님, 그리고 아마
Fellow Kim
시민패널로서
Min-hwan
대구대학교
and fellow Baek Nam-seol, and also we have student Kim Kon.
실무적인 경험이 풍부하신
And first of all, I would like to ask fellow Kim Min-hwan, who has extensive experiences in practical field. So, how did you see the discussion? I mean, the presentation. Nice to meet you all. I am Kim Min-hwan. Professor Lee and Professor Ing-nong, thank you very much for your insightful presentations. Well, there sure is a difference of approach depending on countries, but I would like to call it a diversity, and that diversity can be interpreted as practicality or locality. So diverse problems arise from diverse cities and areas, and we have new ICT-related problems, and how to approach or address those problems can be directly related to data. And recently, what we have been highlighting is the data in a digital policy. So we can export many different things from those data. So the first issue or concern that I had after listening to presentations is about the data usage. Once data is produced, that should be exploited and that should be interpreted to be reused. And once it is patternized, then that can be grafted with AI so that we can have provisions. And during that process, we can have a generality or universality, but concerning inclusiveness, that could be a bit different. Well, the advancement of smart technology and inclusiveness, which is more about sensuality or more sensual approaches, and there's sure a gap, and how to narrow that gap is a key question that we need to think of. So, in that sense, I would like to ask the goal of smart city in terms of narrowing that gap between these two aspects. And secondly, when we talk about smart city, we see technological aspects like ICT, and also we have mobile phones. So we focus firstly on technologies using devices, the fourth industrial revolution, AI, big data. Those have become keywords in that sense. But technology itself is not a problem itself. Technology can exist as a tool to resolve problems. Then, what's the problem? Well, the problem will finally result in humans, and humans are citizens, and citizens live in communities. So the problems of communities should be resolved in cooperation with citizens, and how to apply that kind of thinking process to technology. That should be the key. And what's more important is that to explore community problems, and we have found out solutions based on technologies, but usually those problems are repetitive. So sustainability comes up as the second issue. Then sustainability relates to business. So to talk about smart city, well, I know that Seoul City is very eager to establish a smart city, but there are three major concerns in smart city establishment or deployment. Inclusiveness is about narrowing the gap or narrowing the digital divide. We have the marginalized in our society, and how can we have more access for those people into smart city? That's an inclusive smart city, I guess. And secondly, as Professor Lee has mentioned, data-related problems with intensive production of data. How can we secure security and privacy? Well, related to that, we also need to think of cost efficiency, I suggest. Once there is a service provided, and especially in Seoul City case, there is a strong determination, a political determination. So public fund is formed on the basis of strong determination of government, metropolitan government. But in 3 or 4 years later, and what should we do? Sustainability should come naturally to business. Then who pays the cost for that business? Citizens, okay. Then citizens should be satisfied with the quality of service, and we need to explore that level of service. That's the key point, and big data should be exploited to that end. That's my key point. So citizen participation will be also dealt with or touched upon by other speakers later on. So the objectiveness of digital data and the sustainability, and Professor has mentioned about WeSpace. It's a large-scale space. So that kind of spaceness where we can gather together, we can get along together, and that's important. And I am engaged in various smart city projects, small-scale projects in Jeju Island. The smaller the area is, the diverse the problems are. So how to pattern those diverse issues is the key. And even in Seoul City, we have 25 different districts from Gangnam area and Gangbuk area. So in terms of data, there's dispersion of quality. So how to resolve discriminatory aspects of citizens, and that's very important. So we need to craft those things with business, and business is about innovative startups, but also business can cover community businesses having localities, and that's where my major interest lies. And of course, we have very new technologies, but there are also what we call appropriate technologies that could be fitted right away to the local area, and that could create jobs in community. And that kind of scalability is quite important. And in that area, Seoul City should be engaged. Thank you very much.
박사님 대단히 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim In-hwan. Smart city, it should be more inclusive. So in the long term, private and public sectors should explore new businesses. And to lower the cost, we have to make a sustainable business model. That was his key point.
So I would like to now give the floor to Dr. Baek Nam-cheol from KICT, Korea Institute of Civil Engineering and Building Technology, who's going to share with us his thoughts on how to develop inclusive smart city. Dr. Baek. Hello, I am Baek Nam-cheol. I've heard with great interest the presentation by Professor Ing Long. I think that China was able to develop a lot of its technology because it was able to define well different concepts of technologies. Actually, we think of smart technology as something that should be applied, but when I look at the space model of the smart city of China, I think that China did very well in applying the digital technologies to develop and redefine new spaces and to make the new digital technologies or smart city technologies to be well positioned in the society. So I think there is also a kind of Eastern or Oriental way of thinking, or Asian way of thinking, but which was found to be very effective. Because smart cities is, of course, to develop physical spaces and applying digital technologies to make the society a better society for everyone. That is the model that we need to pursue. And I believe that the China's WeSpace model has been very well conceptualized, and it also embeds very well the Asian philosophy. And I think that Tsinghua University is indeed a leader in that field and is playing a very important role in presenting the right keyword in promoting smart city. And I think that the China's model is also a model that we can replicate because we are actually thinking about what kind of smart city technologies are needed to develop smart cities. And this is the kind of discussion that we need to have. And I think in that sense, the presentation by Professor Long provides a lot of insights. And what I thought while listening to the Seoul presentation was that applying digital technologies should be viewed based on many different factors, and one of which is inclusiveness. And when it comes to big data, yes, it's about sensing different data and then actuating the data to develop future urban spaces and to get a feedback to update our IoT technologies. We need that kind of cycle and process. But if you look at the technologies that are used in Seoul, they are very much limited to the field of digital technology. So I think that we need to include a process where we get a feedback of these technologies to, in return, improve those technologies and ultimately improve the quality of lives of people, and also to fully make these technologies be positioned or established within our society. This is the kind of process that we might need to implement. And if you sense a data, then we should also need a cycle where we can actuate the data and get feedback on those data. So we need this feedback loop to improve the technology. So I actually want to know if there is this kind of model that is available in Seoul.
대단히 감사합니다.
Thank you very much.
몇 가지 이제 중요한 부분들을 말씀해 주셨는데요.
So you've touched upon very important points. So you mentioned about how digitalization should not just stop at digitalization, but its effects should be reflected in our everyday lives. And not only our panel speakers, but we also have citizen panelists in our conference. And I think we have a student from Kyunghee University. So I would like to know what the students' take on this issue.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Gon, and a student from Computer Engineering, Computer Science of Kyunghee University. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Lee and Professor Ing-nong and other panelists for sharing your valuable thoughts and presentations. Well, as a student, I am afraid I lack expertise of smart technology or smart city, but I am very much interested in the impact and the outcomes of smart city. So Professor Ing-nong has touched upon some influences of smart city in relation with COVID-19. So what kind of impact is created, and what kind of impact and influence that can citizens feel? So that's my question. And what kind of also advantages can be experienced by citizens from a smart city?
코로나 사태가
Well, in the era of COVID-19, so what kind of impact did COVID-19 had created on Smart City project under operation? Could you please tell?
Just a short, very short response. So yes, actually, I mean, during the past several months, there were also some critiques for smart city construction in China, since the government has paid a lot for construct cities from the government side. So anyway, there were some critiques to the government, I think, to the government project, government leading smart city project. However, my opinion is, when we are talking about smart city, we should be looking at smart city from a broader perspective. I mean, smart cities can be constructed by the government and can also be developed by internet companies and technical companies. So that is my very quick response. And my other sentence I like to say, in my presentation about waste space, my philosophy, I think waste space is not the desired city space. We also should be critical for that report. We should be so-called cautious for the technical impact for cities. Yeah, Professor Lee, that is my response. Thank you so much.
네, 대단히 감사합니다. 저희가 이제 시간이
Thank you very
지금
much.
여유가 있나요?
Do we have more time to discuss?
알겠습니다.
Yes, around 10 minutes. Thank you.
김관 학생 제가 또 한번
All right,
물어볼게요. 학생
Mr. Kim Gun,
입장에서는
I have a question back to
스마트
you.
시티가
From your
어떤
perspective as a
어떤
student,
서비스를 해주게
what
되면
kind of
가장 좋을
services
것
would you
같아요?
expect from a smart
저는
city?
컴퓨터공학 전공인데
And you major in computer science, right? Well, I lack knowledge, but if I am allowed to say, well, I think the critical thing is to resolve urban problems, including youth employment or youth recruitment. If smart city can help students to find jobs, then the interest of the youth will increase also. Well, experts and the presenters are asked many questions, but I personally think that the questions coming from experts are important, but I thought that it would be more critical to deal with the questions asked by students. So, in that sense, Professor Lee, well, whenever you edit a report of smart city and employment or job creation, those are two keywords that cannot be missed, right? Do you think we can solve that problem through smart city? Well, with the fourth industrial revolution, new jobs are created. In Seoul City as well, through Big Data Campus, we foster many big data experts so that those data can establish an ecosystem. Well, to my opinion, in relation with smart city, many data experts will be fostered and AI experts as well. Those will be new jobs that should be created through smart city. And the role of private and public sector is equally important because they have to make a new business model on the basis of smart city idea. So new sectors will come up as a result, and Seoul City will take a leadership of that area. Well, that's a very important expression to take. So, to students, smart city can be a window of opportunities, right? Okay. Dr. Kim In-hwan, you may have had similar thoughts to this, a window of opportunities. And against that, what kind of roles can municipalities play?
학생 제일 고민하는 저도 이제 딸 둘을 가진 아빠로서 제일 많이 고민하고 있는 분야인데요. 우선 그렇게 생각해 보면 어떨까요? 현재와 미래에 대한 거를 좀 나눠봤으면 좋겠어요. 우리가 어떤 일을 시도하고자 하고 어떤 새로운 거를 노력하고자 할 적에는 우리들이 목표가 있잖아요. 목표 하나가 있고 이 목표를 달성하기 위한 나의 현재 위치를 파악해야 되잖아요. 그래서 미래와 나의 목표와 내가 현재 하고 있는 위치에 대한 그 라인에서 그 갭이 그 차이가 우리가 노력을 해야 될 하나의 정도라는 걸로 봤을 때 현재 스마트시티는 굉장히 다양하고 여러 가지 기회가 올 건 분명하다. 다만 현재 있어서
And of course, smart technologies has a lot of opportunities, and there are lots of aspects related with data in smart technologies, and there can be mismatch of data that can occur. It can be in terms of data or in terms of information. So we really have to address the gap between our current state and the future technologies. To give you an example, regarding COVID-19, what a lot of people are looking at is open COVID-19 website. So a lot of people are accessing this website, and in this website, you can find a lot of discussions and different projects to overcome COVID-19. So if you suggest one idea, then the people around the world will look at your idea and contact you if they're interested. And if that project is selected, it will get a fund of $3,000. So what does this mean? It means that you have to know where you stand, and you also have to know your goal, and you have to know the gap between the two and try to reduce that gap. And Professor Lee also mentioned window of opportunities. Of course, people tend to be conservative, but when we seek innovation, seek new things, sometimes we tend to falter, we tend to shake. But it's this kind of shake or faltering is based on the gap, but the gap itself can also be an opportunity. So when we talk about COVID-19, I jokingly say that. So what do we do usually? We try to respond to COVID-19. So what kind of responses are we taking? We set up blinds or... But after response, what do we have to do? We have to find a solution. So that is finding the treatment. But what is more important is prevention. That is development of vaccines. So response, solution, and prediction are three elements that go hand in hand. And we should take a note of that. So you may identify so many gaps in between the present and the future. But the fact that you're identifying these gaps, it means that it can serve as an opportunity as well. Yes, today we're joined by many distinguished guests. Professor Ying Long. So I know that in China you have worked a lot with Tencent. So do you have any projects that you are planning to work with Tencent or other tech companies? And Professor Lee mentioned about Seoul's cases. So what is your impression of Seoul's cases? And from a Chinese perspective, what kind of advice can you give to Seoul City?
Yeah, I'm afraid from my point of view, I only have the China perspective. Since I think smart cities have been extensively discussed in the country, different players in the country. And for Tencent, I think our project is only at the technical layer, rather design or developing layer. I think in the close future, since our background is urban designer, I think urban designers together with engineers from technical company or internet company have great potential to collaborate with each other. I think it is ongoing, like the Toyota and BIC have been working together for the woven city, as you know, and also for the sidewalk. I think designers also involved and Google involved, although it failed. So my idea is for planner, designers, and engineers from technical company have great potential to collaborate with each other. I think this may be applying for both China and Korea. That is also the direction of our lab has been working on. So Professor Lee, so that is my answer, I think. Thank you.
예, 시간이 좀 짧아서
Well, thank you. I'm
가지 제가
sorry
시간을
that
드린다고
we do not have enough time to listen to all stories of Professor Ying Long. But let me add up some comments. And fellow Kim In-hwan and fellow Baek Nam-chul and other Korean experts have a lot of experiences. So I wish to see more and more cooperative projects coming. So I want to apologize for not being able to give you many more opportunities to make a comment. And with that, let me now conclude the first session. Thank you very much. That was a meaningful discussion session. And thank you, our chairperson, and also speakers and panelists. And the first session has had a topic of inclusive smart city and big data to discuss the challenges to overcome in propelling the projects of smart city. It was such a meaningful occasion. Thank you very much, and we would like to have a short break before we begin the second session. We'll see you soon back. Thank you.
그렇게 모두의 여행은 닫혀 있었다. 이제 우리가 가까워질 시간.
어서 와요. 서울에 온 걸 환영해요.
봤어요? 먼저 서울 스타일로 변신. 어때요?
같이 걸을까요? 서울의 이야기를 조용히 들어봐요.
짠! 이번엔 짜릿한 서울을 즐길 시간.
배고프겠다. 서울 맛집으로 내가 안내할게요.
많이 기다렸죠? 대신 더 특별한 서울을 보여줄게요.
같이 보고 싶다. 우와. 함께 할 거죠? 약속.
여행이 시작되면 첫 번째 목적지는 서울이 되길 바래.
서울에서 만나요. See you in Seoul. I saw you.
Music always embraces an era. It holds the time, space, and scenery of the city that we love.
Seoul is a truly special city. This trail is an old railroad track that, instead of being torn down, was completely reformed. The city has created a sense of ease and romance I had forgotten, and it surprises me every time I experience it.
You see? What another perfect reason to stay.
I moved to Seoul and now live and work here. I was very impressed with this culture that maintains original aspects while adding a new sense.
It's because empathy is what matters. People-centered values that prioritize the happiness of everyone are found across Seoul, where past traditions in the present coexist.
That warm feeling. Isn't that a great reason to live in Seoul?
I think Seoul is filled with more energy than any other city. Such energy becomes the possibilities of the future. Various attempts to connect individuals and businesses create new business opportunities, and it makes Seoul a city where creative investments are possible with advanced 5G technologies. A more creative,
More dynamic,
more refreshing,
and more passionate city.
Seoul, a special city for you and me. I saw you.
네, 여러분 지금부터는 저희 두 번째 주제로
Ladies and gentlemen, we will move on to
이번
the
세션의
second
주제는
session,
수용성
and the
스마트
second
시티를 위한
session is
시민
about
참여입니다.
citizen
먼저
participation
이번
for
주제와 함께
inclusive
이야기
smart
나눠볼
city.
자자는
So I would
먼저
like to
소개가
introduce to
있겠습니다.
you the moderator
먼저
as well as our
자자이신
panelists.
조영태
We have
LHI
Mr.
스마트
Cho
도시
Young-tae
연구센터장님
from the
자리해주셨습니다.
LHI Smart
안녕하세요,
City
센터장님.
Research Center.
네, 조영태 센터장께서는
And Director Cho Young-tae has argued that citizen participation is the key to develop a true smart city. We look forward to his moderating this session. And we are joined also by Professor Park In-kwon from Seoul National University. Hello. We also have Mr. Kim Hee-dae, who is the head of the Center for Urban Innovation Conversions Planning. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be here. And virtually, we are also joined by panelists from abroad. From Europe, we have Mr. Fernando Villarino from Living Lab Networks.
Hello. Thank you very much for your time today. 다음으로 인도네시아
Next, we have from Indonesia, from Diponegoro University, Mr. Professor Ian Ludigarto.
Looking forward to hearing from you. 네. 아울러 저희
We also have Wang Wang from China. Wang Wangwin from China. Hello.
네, 이렇게 저희 화상으로
Yes, so we have many panelists joining us physically and virtually. So with that, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Cho Young-tae, who will be moderating the second session. Thank you. Hello, I forgot to use the microphone. Hello. I am from LHI Smart City Research Center, Cho Young-tae. So I was not really smart in not using the microphone. Thank you. Sorry for that. And across the world, inclusive smart city has become the global agenda, not only in Korea, not only in Seoul, but also many cities and countries in Europe are implementing people-centered smart city. So if you look back in 2015, the United Nations first adopted the word inclusiveness for a lot of cities. And in SDG, we saw the emergence of the word inclusiveness, inclusion. It's become much talked about across the world. And smart city has become also a buzzword. And the Habitat 3 conference actually was very important in raising awareness in the issue. So inclusive smart city has become a very important keyword around the world. The Korean government in 2018 announced a strategy for a new smart city, which is centered on people. So this has become our vision ever since. And Korea is also implementing people-centered inclusive smart city. So technology-wise, a data-centered smart city was actually the topic of our first session. And the second session is going to be a people-centered, people-centric smart city. So with this topic, we are going to hear insights from many distinguished panelists from home and abroad. And first of all, so there is ENOL, which is a European network. So from ENOL, we have Professor Fernando Villarino. He is also the chairperson. And I've met him actually in 2018. I don't know if you remember me. So I would like to now give the floor to Professor Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's a pleasure also to me to be here and get back to the Korean ecosystem. For me, it's been a number of years now that I've been interacting with this ecosystem, and it's also a pleasure to see how the concept of smart city, an inclusive smart city, which is definitely the goal and the topic of this conversation is going forward. So let me please start with my presentation and introduce a little bit of myself first. I come from the area of technology. We know that technology, we have heard that today is one of the basic elements that we are having in the smart city. My technology is artificial intelligence, computer vision. As you can identify, computer vision is the artificial intelligence of videos and images. And we use that in order to provide the smart city with the tools for instance, autonomous driving, but also automatic analysis of images of text, extracting text, but also with medical imaging, etc. So this is basically my area of research. And we are collecting all these tools for computer vision within the context of Spain in the Catalan Computer Vision Alliance. This allows to integrate all the stakeholders. And for me, this is very important to stress because all stakeholders are allowing us to put together not only the companies and the public administration, but also the citizens and also the academia in the game of the smart city. And this is what we are developing in the area of computer vision in the Catalonian environment. But one of the things that I'm doing too, in addition to help our students to create very interesting robots endowed with artificial intelligence, is to develop new areas of exploration and experimentation. This is, for instance, the Library Living Lab. And I will go a little bit in depth in a few minutes. First, let me introduce what we understand by Living Lab. As you mentioned before, I have the honor and pleasure of being the president of the European Network of Living Labs, with more than 14 years in which we have been helping the Living Lab community in Europe and the world to thrive. Keep in mind that now the European Network of Living Labs has more than 20% of their members non-European. And we have the pleasure to have with us some participants here, for instance, the the Creative Day Group Living Lab, and also the Smart Safety Living Lab very recently from Azan, and also Busan Living Lab, one of the first to join our network. So we are well aware about the concept of Living Lab, very well established in Korea from different perspectives, and supporting the smart city approach. So within the network, we facilitate and we also help to create policies, essential tools in order to develop the smart city concept. But what is a Living Lab if some of you probably are not familiar with the concept? Well, first of all, this is a multiple helix approach to an open innovation ecosystem. In this multiple helix, we have the ingredients of people, academia, industry, and government. And the challenges that we are living today are not allowing just for one of these stakeholders to work alone in their solution. We have to work together in this multi-stakeholder approach. But in addition to the multi-stakeholder approach, we have a citizen-centric approach, a people-centric approach. That means that in the Living Labs that ENOL is supporting, the citizen is participating actively. And they are participating in the process of innovation. So how is this happening? The basic features that we are having in a Living Lab are a number of them. But the most important one is that we are talking about real life settings. And this has an enormous transformative potential. We can transform our public libraries, our cities and public spaces, the places of our companies, the collaborations between our companies and our public organizations in our hospitals, in actual places for innovation, transforming the public space. This is essential for a living lab. We are not having a lab in the university, we're having a lab in a real life setting. And it is here where a co-creation process happens between this multiple helix approach. And this is the model that now we believe, and particularly I think, that it is essential for our smart city to implement in order to connect this top-down and bottom-up approach, but most important because it is very clear that all the challenges related to mobility, to health, and to energy and environment cannot be tackled just by one organization or institution. It has to be a global approach to that. So that is what Living Labs try to do. And during the following minutes, I will try to give you a number of examples in which Living Labs, from the perspective of Enel, have been providing solutions for these challenges. The context of this is the digital transformation. And the digital transformation is not only a new industrial revolution, it goes further. The digital transformation is a human transformation that allows us, endows the people with the possibility of potential access to all human knowledge, potential access to that human knowledge. And this allows us also to be part of the processes of innovation through that knowledge. So the digital transformation is something that has changed forever humankind. And this has to do with all the social artifacts and all the socioeconomic impact that comes with the digital transformation. Some of them we haven't heard of during the previous presentations from the experts in the smart city context. Let me talk now about the lines of a specific work that we are developing in the European Network of Living Labs. One of that is social innovation and digital rights. What we are trying to develop here? We have been heard about technologies along our conversation in this conference. But beyond the hard technologies, we need some new social technologies to be implemented in order to allow this participative approach, this inclusive view of innovation to happen. It cannot happen without these new social technologies. Living Labs can play a role into the creation of these new social technologies. And we are developing an approach for collaboratories as a method of universal system at different levels, in which we can put together in the first layer the network of primary citizen labs, living labs, telecenters, fab labs, archives, public libraries, etc., because there is where people are attending. Then we have a second layer of network of citizen labs. So putting together all those small labs into a network is that allows for the translation of the knowledge to the different areas. We have an example of this being happening both in the United Kingdom and in Spain from different approaches. So this is actual social transformation at the public service approach. And finally, we have highly specialized labs, which are the university labs, the supercomputation infrastructures, the labs that we are having in our smart cities that allow for this new chain of social structure to develop and to allow for this inclusive to happen, because otherwise it cannot happen if we're having the right technologies and the right methods for it to be present in our cities. Another line of action that we are taking, and now I will focus a little bit in the example that I was mentioning before, is the social impact of artificial intelligence. As a professor in that area, what I have seen is that there is an enormous acceleration in the achievement of new AI solutions and of new processes. But this has to be going together, not only with the technology, but with the awareness and the adaptation of these new technologies by the population, because otherwise we can face enormous problems that have to do not only with ethics and not only with data management, but also with the lack of possibility of having people getting profit of what we are offering as a scientist. For that reason, we have transformed, or we have contributed to the transformation of an already existing infrastructure of public libraries in Spain, in Barcelona city particularly, with a library living lab. And I give this example because this is an example of an original way of thinking of already existing infrastructures where we have already the citizens, in which our scientists and our companies are bringing together their products and solutions. We put them in the library and we generate co-creation sessions together with the participants, with the library users that now become already innovators by contributing to the process and to the awareness and to understanding of these technologies. So this has changed the libraries in Barcelona from hubs of books, from repository of books, to actual repositories of knowledge in people. And this is something that we are going to develop also in different areas. For instance, health and well-being. I think that one of the elements that we are developing here with most interest is the change from patient to protagonist. That means that the health systems, our health system in our hospitals and our care centers are no longer almost now, and due to the aging population that we are having, just a service in case that we are having an illness or we get sick. They have to become an actual service for the citizens in order to develop their well-being. And the associations of patients are participating in this transformation in different ecosystems and different national health systems. I can give you a number of examples in Spain, but this is also happening in Greece through gamification actions within the hospitals and together with the universities, and also in the Netherlands together with the close contact with companies, big companies, in the developing of new test beds for the hospitals. Another line of very important action is energy and environment. But here, our living labs, particularly led by our colleagues from Switzerland, are working in changing or helping, contributing to change our habits. And this is essential because only the technology is not allowing us to improve the results. It's a change of habits that would definitely get for a sustainable green economy. There's no other way of doing that. And the only way of doing that change of habits is by providing an explorative area, an exploration arena, in order that the citizens can work together with the organizations, with the public institutions, with the municipalities, in order to develop these new concepts and methods. And yes, the technology will help to do that, but the change of habits has to be acquired by their own citizens. Otherwise, it will be a wasted action or a wasted time. And finally, let me finish with another line of action, because I'm finishing my presentation now, which is having a word for the rural areas. We are talking about smart cities, but our smart cities cannot be understood without the rural living ecosystem. And this living lab approach that we are promoting has to do with 2 or 3 different pillars. The first one is the digital capacity building for empowering rural citizens in rural areas. This is essential because we are believing, we have in mind that we have hyperconnectivity in the city, but what happens with this hyperconnectivity when we get to the rural areas? Because it is there where we can also change the food cycle in order to go for agri-food approach, more sustainable, and also to enjoy our nature, and also to provide a more healthy and sustainable way of life. So basically, this is interconnected with what I was mentioning before in the change of habits, and also with the transformation of the health system into a holistic approach for the well-being. So rural areas are smart rural areas. They have to do not only with the smart farming, they have to do also with the digital capacity building in order for that smart farming to be quickly adopted. This is fundamentally the line in which we are working in the European Network of Living Lands together with our colleagues in Europe and the world. In Asia also we are collaborating with Taiwan and also with our colleagues from our Living Labs in Korea. But for that to happen, it's essential to invest money in capacity building. So it is these new social technologies are not happening if we cannot show our citizens basic tools in order to empower them to innovate. In an action of democratization of the access to knowledge and innovation, there should be a program for capacity building on these types of approaches. And this is what we are trying to do with the non-capacity building program in our year conference and also during the year. But here the message is very important. The integration, the inclusion is not happening as per se. We need to invest into this capacity building and into these methodologies also, not only for the managers of our cities, but also for our citizens themselves in order to understand the power of transformation. So with this approach, I'm reaching to the end of my presentation. I definitely invite you, if you are interested to know more, to visit the European Network of Living Labs website. And the only thing that I am left saying is thank you very much to the participants and to the host of the event, and 감사합니다. Thank you.
네, 감사드립니다. 제가 2018년에 들었던 의장님의
Thank you very much. Well, I have listened to your agenda in 2018 as well, but you got more passionate this year, and we will share your thoughts as much as possible. Thank you so much once again. And next is about Seoul City's case. Professor Park In-kwon of GSES of Seoul National University will talk about the conceptualization of inclusive city and revisiting. Please.
Hi, nice to meet you. It's my pleasure to have this opportunity to present my study on inclusive city. Today I'm going to talk about the inclusive city, focusing on the case of Seoul. While other presenters, talked about smart city, I will focus on the inclusivity of cities. Okay. As you know, many cities around the world are experiencing the social exclusion. The urban poor, the immigrants, irregular workers, the disabled, and young people and women are sometimes excluded from many opportunities cities have to offer. In reality, these problems are realized in the form of, lack of affordable housing, segregation, gated community, and mobility inequalities. As a response to this problem, the concept of inclusive city has emerged from all over the world. So today, I just want to revisit the concept of the inclusive city as a comprehensive vision to overcome the problem of social exclusion in cities. And I want to review the inclusive initiatives in Seoul in light of this concept. Okay, the inclusive city is a kind of a vision to overcome the social exclusion. I just first looked at the concept of social exclusion. There is a long list of history of social studies on this concept. There are a lot of definitions, and they talked about many dimensions and components of this concept. But in a nutshell, I can say that this concept, social exclusion is not only a state, but also a process that individuals or groups of people do not participate in the political decision-making, the distribution of various resources, and the private reciprocal relations as well. And there is another literature related to this concept, which is the concept of right to the city. Actually, this concept was, as you know, was introduced by the urban scientist Henri Lefebvre in 1960s. He argued that every single person has the right to participate in the production and appropriation of urban space, and they also have the right to difference and right of this concept is not limited only the citizens, but also include all the rights of inhabitants, regardless of whether they have citizenship or not. And his followers also stress the importance of participation and capabilities and right to difference and right to making a city more better system. And recently, there's more practical approaches as well. As you know, UN Habitat launched a campaign for the inclusive city in the 1990s, and in 2016, UN Habitat had a conference, and they also talked about a lot of things, including this topic, and they adopted New Urban Agenda. The core theme of this New Urban Agenda is about summarized as a cities for all. This concept is basically in line with the inclusive city. In this regime, they emphasize the stress, the participatory planning and decision-making process, which is more emphasis put on the process rather than the output. And based upon all this literature and the studies, I define this concept as a kind of normative model, as a city where all inhabitants have capabilities to live a basic life as members of society and are interdependent, both formally and informally, in all areas of life, such as politics, economy, society, and culture, and not excluded from various decision-making processes and various activities of civil society, and which has spatial openness to support all of them. And also, in order to evaluate and propose some policies, I also conceptualize this concept as analytical terms as well. So I figured out 4 basic dimensions. Following the social exclusion literature, I adopted 2 dimensions, interdependence and participation. But many scholars also emphasize that in order for people to participate and to have interdependence with others, they should have capabilities. So capability building, also another important concept. And also, this inclusive city is kind of a special concept. So spatial openness is also another important concept. This concept includes affordable housing and outreach and spatial integration. So based upon this concept and dimensions, I came up with a indicator system, which is called Urban Inclusivity Indicator System, and which consists of 4 dimensions, 11 components, 33 indicators. These indicators are selected based upon both validity and data availability. And the importance of these indicators were evaluated by experts in the field of urban planning, sociology, geography, economics, and social work. And based upon this indicator system, I evaluated Korean cities. And this is a kind of example for the city of Seoul. We can evaluate a city's inclusivity based upon this importance performance analysis, IPA. This horizontal axis represents the importance of the 33 indicators, and the fourth quadrant represents the fallacy area, where the importance is very high, but the performance is very low. So which should be the policy focus this Seoul. For instance, the employment for social disadvantage is very poor in Seoul, so we should focus on that. And also social network is another big challenge in Seoul, so that is policy target. And let me move on to some initiative, policy initiative adopted by City of Seoul. The first one is Village Community Supports Program, which is a new type of urban regeneration project, which was first launched in 2012 by the City of Seoul. And this kind of bottom-up and participatory approach where residents in poor villages make an important plans by themselves to solve their problems. And also the local government support their initiatives. Community project in this program includes the following things: joint child care, organic food store, shared housing, community library, community choir and band, after-school care, physical environment improvement, community art center, and so on. And also small municipalities, Seongdong-gu in Seoul also adopted some smart initiatives to improve their inclusivity in their city. They believe that smart technologies such as intelligence, artificial intelligence and big data can improve the capabilities of social disadvantaged. This picture shows an example of that kind of smart city. So this is called, smart bus station. This provides very pleasant environment for transit users, including, air cleaners and UV sterilizer and thermal imaging cameras, things like that. And this is another example. The municipality, Seongdong-gu, provides AI speakers for older people living alone. Sometimes they feel that they are very lonely and isolated because they live alone, but this AI system can soothe their loneliness a little bit. And also they can use these AI speakers for asking for help in an emergency as well. And another one is lovely shoes for people with dementia. The municipality provides these shoes with GPS insoles to locate missing older people with dementia. And so far I just talked about some small initiatives, but they are very good examples to enhance the capabilities of socially disadvantaged people. This was made possible by the citizen participation through this living lab for daily life policies. All the citizens can propose and present their own problems and propose some policies to solve their problems. And private partners also join this effort to improve the inclusivity of city. This map shows the Seoul Forest Social Venture Cluster. Within a 2-kilometer radius, about 300 social ventures, nonprofit, and social enterprises employ about 3,000 young people for social innovation. There are also a lot of incubator, accelerators, and investors located in this area to support this cluster. And another cluster is built by the city government. And the previous cluster was formed organically by private parties, but in this project, Social Innovation Park was built by the Seoul Metropolitan Government, where a lot of social innovators get together to come up with goods and services to support, to enhance the capabilities of the socially disadvantaged people. So in conclusion, I can say that all these social innovation and social practices to improve social inclusivity of the city was made possible, all citizens' participation. Thank you.
네, 박인권 교수님 발표 잘 들었습니다. 박인권 교수님께서는 포용도시에 대한 개념, 학술적인 개념에서부터 실제적인 개념에 대해서 잘 정리해 주신 것 같습니다. 그리고 서울의 성동구 사례를 들어서 이게 자세히 포용도시의 스마트시티 내용들을 설명해 주신 것 같습니다. 저희 다음 발제자는 인도네시아의 교수님을 모시도록 하겠습니다. 잠깐만요. 인도네시아의
디파르가라 대학교의 이안 루디아르토 교수님이십니다. 제가 이 디파르가라라는 대학이 어떤 지역인지 잘 몰라서 제가 구글에서 찾아봤더니 자바섬에 있는 대학입니다. 그리고 아마 1800년대 인도네시아의 독립운동을 주도했던 왕자의 이름을 딴 대학이라고 이렇게 구글에 나와 있는데 이게 맞는지 잘 모르겠습니다. 이것들 확인 겸해서 저희 이안 루디아르토 교수님의 인도네시아의 스마트 시티에 대한 내용들을 발제를 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Professor Iwan Rudiardo to listen to his presentation in Indonesia, please. I'm afraid he's not listening to us due to technical connection problem. Well, I guess that there's a technical issues, so while waiting for our Indonesian speaker.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is
Well, a system connection is not stable, so we would like to begin our general discussion session first while waiting for our speaker to be connected again. So, well then, we'd like to listen to a student, Wang Wan-ling, who's based in Korea now. Well, actually, we just listened to two presentations only, delivered by Professor Park and Chairman Fernando Villarino. So if you have any comments to add or questions, please go ahead.
연결돼 있습니다. 말씀해 주십시오.
Yes, you're online. Yes, please go ahead.
Yep, thank you for your presentation. Yeah, my name is Wang Yu, and I'm a international student in Korea, and I attended the Women's Safety Incident Planning Team last month. We had a discussion together on the prevention of war and smartphone waste of single-owner households in Kwang-Agu. So, technologies can make our life convenient. As you guys mentioned before, technologies present urban problems like digital divide and exclusiveness. How do you think we should solve the digital divide? And how does social innovation connect to digital technologies? And what is the role of citizens in the solution? Thank you.
네, 질문은 디지털 격차의 문제, 사회적 배제의 문제를 어떻게 디지털 기술로 극복할 수 있을지에 대한 질문이셨습니다. 이 질문에 대해서는 먼저 저희 박 교수님께 답변을 좀 부탁드려도 될까요?
Okay, that is a very good question. You know, smart technologies can, as I said, improve the capabilities of the socially disadvantaged people, but in reality, it is not the case. You know, these technologies also just concentrated in the people with good education and also good high level of assets and so on. So that's, kind of exclusion should be overcome by intervention from the government, and also civil society also should play a role to, fill the gap. And there are also maybe, technological solutions as well. For instance, these days we have many good technologies to facilitate the participation of citizens. In this case, for instance, today's conference is also one example. From all over the world, many people can get together to say something together, even if they separate it, regardless of the distance. So, for instance, we can introduce that kind of technologies to facilitate citizens' participation. And also, so far in reality, many people just focused on the technologies that provide, come up with a lot of profit. But, socially disadvantaged people need some basic, very basic technology, and which is called technologies called appropriate and suitable technologies. We may better focus on the small technologies rather than big, profit technologies, I think. Okay.
I would love also, if possible, to provide a comment on this to the excellent question. And from my perspective, I think that we are missing, in the context of smart cities, not only hard technologies, but also a number of social technologies that allows for these mechanisms of integration to be natural to the process of innovation. So this was something that has not been developed so far, or with the extent of with the strength needed in order to allow these hard technologies, 5G or supercomputation or artificial intelligence, to have an actual impact in our society. This ground layer for the smart city of social technologies, I think it's an enormous opportunity for the smart cities and for the social science to again connect with the innovation development, and a room also to develop the connection to the already existing infrastructures. And I will give you one example about that. Building new infrastructures is very expensive, but we are having a number of already existing in our infrastructures in our cities, such as hospitals or civic centers or libraries or archives, that can be refurbished from a methodological point of view in order to allow this new achievement, this early adaptation of technology to effectively happen. And eventually this could be a way forward, not to just create new infrastructures, but to reuse or to reshape the already existing infrastructures in our cities within the innovation processes.
페르난도 교수님 답변 감사드립니다.
Thank you for your answer,
저희가
Professor
페르난도
Fernando.
교수님이 계신 유럽보다는 인도네시아가 거리적으로는 더 가까운데 물리적 거리는 가까운데 저희가 아직은 디지털 거리는 조금 더 먼 것 같습니다. 저희 질문을 받는 사이에
digital distance seems to be a lot farther than Europe. Well, he's connected again. Professor Ian Rudiarto, please, now the floor is yours again.
I was really sorry about the connection. I hope the connection is much better now. First of all, the sound is echo, yeah? First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Iwan Rudiarto. I am from Diponegoro University and from particularly from Department of Urban and Regional Planning. And I would like to present about the development and challenges of smart city in Indonesia. Okay, and before I start, it is really an honor for me to be as a presenter here among the really experts from different countries. Okay, then yes, I will talk very much on what has been done in Indonesia related to smart city development, because this is it has been a national policy that a government would like to introduce a smart city concept to every city in Indonesia. Okay, so why we need a smart city? Because, you know, as you already know, that mega trends of ICT has been has been influenced the city development, from different aspects, particularly in big data and also in Internet of Things. And of course, cities are growing wild. People become a little bit grumbler. Tasks and a lot of jobs are growing fast. People really need to do in very fast way. And on the other hand, decisions are also going, growing from dates. And now at the moment, the world also, become very narrow, because there is no boundary anymore where you can contact any people from different position in different countries. Okay, and why do we in the smart city from the perspective of planner? Because I'm a planner. I believe also some of colleagues also from SNU mentioned that they are also a planner. So we concern very much because planners, they deal very much with with policy. So most of the smart city issues related to place-based strategies. So this is the position of the planner, where you can contribute in this part. And on the other hand, the very fast growing of technology development and also the Internet of Things had been engaged all the people and also the government, local government, mostly in the city, to get also in the in the environment of the urban system. And on the other hand, you have to think also that a smart city, sometimes people think that it is cost efficiencies with the racial infrastructure, then it can improve the urban experience. But the question is that, do you really ready with the technology? How is your infrastructure? And then also, how is the people? I always say that smart city is not about the technology, but how you can encourage the people to get involved within this kind of how to create the innovation. Okay. From the Indonesian perspective, mostly of each city that has been applied the smart city concept concerned with these 6 components. Where you concerned about the smart environment, smart people, smart mobility, governance, living, and also the economy. So this is the major concern of what has been developing in Indonesia. And every city concerned about this component. Therefore, normally government also give the award for those specific component, for different kind of category. And this is the concept, the general concept of what government of Indonesia has been done to apply smart city in Indonesia. Okay, actually, previously we have a meeting because Smart City Indonesia under the supervision and organized by the Ministry of Communication and Information. And we are from the university have the collaboration because my department and also with two others departments from different university would like to establish a master program in smart city. So that's why we need to get some feedback from the government. So the government, what they would like to do is they would like to establish the kind of city operation center, yeah, by concerning about the branding, economy, living, society, and the environment. And at the end, by using the big data Internet of Things, and at the end, it will create what we call as e-governance. Yeah, and this e-governance is very robust. I mean, you find a lot of smart city application in every city in Indonesia dealing with this issue, dealing with e-budgeting, dealing with e-planning, and so on. And also in relevance with education, they also show you at the end of the presentation. And this is the concept, yeah, how the Indonesian government would like to also involve different kind of stakeholder in creating smart city. Yeah, our government has a program of 100 smart cities in Indonesia, yeah, by involving different kind of stakeholder from provider, from consultant, from academics, and also from media, yeah, and from different kind of public stakeholder as well. And okay, as you may see in the pictures, you know, previously, the government proposed 25 cities as the pioneer of 100 cities policy of smart city, and then within hopefully, yeah, from the program of the government during 4 years from 2050 up to 2019, there will be 100 smart cities in Indonesia. But I don't know the development until now, because, you know, during the COVID pandemic, every activity related to smart city, I think it's not really popular anymore, because the government concerns very much on the how to overcome with the COVID-19 pandemic at the moment. So this is the special distribution of 100 smart city from our policy, government policy, and where you can see that most of the smart city program are located in Java Island. Yeah, I think it is almost 80% of all 100 smart cities program in Indonesia. And to encourage every city in Indonesia to get more involved in a smart city program, so our government also gives different kind of awards, yeah, based on those 6 previous component of smart city that I already mentioned before. As for instance, with smart governance, it was awarded to Semarang City, where I live now. Yeah, I live in Semarang City at the moment, the capital of Central Java. And then from smart branding, yeah, it goes to Jember Regency, and smart economy, it goes to Denpasar City, and different kind of award as for instance smart living to Sleman as well, to smart society, and also smart environment. So that's what the government did for the last year, for 2019, to give the award for every city that has innovation and has kind of, innovation related to different smart city component. And this is as one, for example, from Semarang City, as already mentioned, this is the most application, that has been applied in Indonesia, where every city, every regency, they are in numbers of e-planning and e-budgeting growing in the city, Indonesian city. So on the left side, you see that this is the application of the innovation for e-planning. Yeah, but because previously it has been done manually, yeah, and then it transferred to digital form, and then it create efficiency and also very effective to know your proposal about one program, and then what has been approved by the government and what has been not, and so on. And also the budgeting, how much budget you will get for one kind of activity or one program, a specific program. So you can see from this innovation application in planning and budgeting. So on the other hand, in the planning process, in the special based planning, yeah, you can see that, this is a planning process, because in Indonesia we have kind of bottom-up planning process where you get all the proposal from the people living in very small unit, as for example from neighborhoods, and then from neighbor level they propose this kind of some proposal of planning activity to the urban village level, and then it goes to the sub-district level, and then finally it goes to city levels. But not all the proposal has been approved, so the government has to see which one is more priority as compared to the others. But from this with this kind of innovation in special based planning with using the e-planning, then you can see where up to what level your proposal has been approved, and then what kind of activity, what kind of proposal that has not been approved, and that it is not approved and financed by the government, and next year it will be your new proposal again. So it will not be eliminated from the list. And yeah, this is one example for DPU, for the control room, yeah, for the public works department or board in Semarang City, where you can see, yeah, I think you have everywhere in every city, yeah, and in Seoul as well, yeah. You can see all kind of traffic, road quality, and for Frankie to say that not every region has been has been placed something like a surveillance camera to monitor all the movement from the people in the city. Okay, that was the example from Semarang City. And then I go to the Surabaya City. So Surabaya City, they also one of the best example for the smart city, particularly in e-government. Yeah. So in their e-government, they create different kind of E's. Yeah. As for instance, for e-budgeting project and so on, for the financial management in their city. Yeah. And also human resources for their staff, yeah, and for the also which related to the salary, to the position, and so on. And they also have e-monitoring, yeah, to monitor as far as surveillance CCTV. And what is very famous also with e-education, yeah, where they have different program, and then they distribute the program to the people. E-permit, e-health, e-office, and so on. So in Surabaya, they have these e-things into one, what they call as e-government. Yeah. Okay, and next, this is also one example from one city in Western Java. Surabaya, it was from Eastern Java, capital of East Java, and now we are going to western part, which is in Cirebon City. Yeah, in Cirebon City, they also develop different kind of, smart city things. Yeah, as you may see, maybe if you can see on the left side on the blue box, they mention about the smart environment, smart people, and smart things also. So they also publish any kind of news within the smart website, smart website for smart city for every cities in Indonesia. Okay, now what can be the challenges? Because as you know, the smart city is not only about the technology, but the matter is that how you can encourage people to be more innovative. And then if people get more innovative, then you will invent innovative things, by doing kind of innovation. So the challenges should be, from public services, how is performance of public services, and there are 18 components, the challenges of the smart city in Indonesia, and I think you may see also the component of those 18 components, but I think the most important is that in this slide, because this is the most influent things in developing smart city. You can say that smart city is related to governance, okay, fine. It's related to resources. It is related also with government, society, businessmen, and even education institution, and innovation and public service until life quality. But if you have a kind of complicated bureaucracy, if you have the major, your leader, your region or major, which is not concerned very much, they don't deal very much with smart city, then it won't be happen. So, in my opinion, for the successful smart city application or concept or innovation in the city, it's very much depend on leadership. From the major, also from region in every city or regency in Indonesia. So this is become the most determinant factor in Indonesian smart city. As you may see that every as for example, like Jakarta and Surabaya, they have a very very open-minded leader. So the smart city concept in those two cities has been developed into more advanced technology, and also involving the people by doing innovation together with the society. I think that's all my presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, once again, thank you.
네, 유한 교수님. 인도네시아 스마트시티 정책에서부터
Thank you very much,
스마트시티 리더십까지 이렇게 다양한
Ian
말씀을 주셨습니다.
Rudiarto. You have
저희가 시간이
covered
좀
a
많이 늦어진
diverse
관계로
aspects of smart city
좀
projects of
짧게
Indonesia.
진행을
Thank
하고
you so
있는데요.
much.
저희 마지막으로
Alright,
지정
due to time
토론자인
constraints, we
저희
would
대구
like to have a
테크노밸리의
concise
김희대
panel
센터장님
discussion session.
초대하겠습니다. 김희대
Let me
센터장님이 계신 대구는
invite
우리나라에서
first
스마트 시티 그리고
Chairperson
리빙 넷
Kim
분야에서도
Hee-dae
아주
of
선도적인
Urban
역할을 하고
Innovation
있고 그 중심에
Fusion
저희
Planning
김희대
Center
센터장님이
at Daegu
계십니다.
Technopark, and Daegu is a
지정
leading
토론
city of smart project. Please. Thank you.
한국말로 좀 하겠습니다.
Well, let me intervene in Korean. As you all know, since COVID-19, the global economy has been shrinked. And the smart city also faces many challenges. Smart city started from UCT project, and its concept has been evolving as a sustainable smart city, organic smart city, and biosmart city. So, in that sense, inclusive smart city has many meanings and significances. And there are some conflicts of concepts on smart city, but with inclusiveness, we can embrace those conflicting concepts, I guess. We have listened to 3 presentations, and if I put a frame onto that, it could be a facility of innovation. in terms of facility of innovation, then we should ask ourselves what is innovation and what kind of innovation can a smart city be equipped with. Well, to be a smart city, to establish a smart city, citizens can establish an agenda and they can form a community, and through that they can suggest solutions and ideas, and they can also proceed living lab. And some cities find this process easy and some others don't. Well, Professor Fernando of Living Lab and Professor Ian of Indonesia, well, while having a look at your cases, I found that there are remarkable differences between two, and Professor Park also has shown different smart city initiatives. In Europe, a facility of innovation seems easier to get, but in Indonesia, due to the not enough participation of citizenship, facility of innovation doesn't seem to be as easy as Europe, but still you have a top-down approach which is quite effective. And in Daegu, we have many testbed initiatives like urban participation testbed, so that we can explore the local agenda, so that we can apply it to Living Lab to facilitate and precipitate the deployment of smart city. That should be the ultimate destination that we should aim for. Well, we do not have enough time, so I would like to ask a question and ask for opinion to one speaker only, Professor Fernando or Chairperson Fernando Villarino. I met you last year and the year before, and every time I met you, I just felt your passion and your engagement in this subject, and I got impressed much. And Daegu is one of the members of the lab, and you helped us a lot. Thank you for your effort. Well, INNO is targeting sustainable SDGs, and we have shared many agendas and discussions like inclusive smart city and digital technology. And in the long term of INNO, you must have new goals to achieve. And what is your long-term direction? What is your idea of future, please?
Thank you very much for your kind words. I definitely, it's a pleasure to work with all the team that Daegu Living Lab. You were starting mentioning the COVID approach, right? The COVID pandemic that we are living now. And I think it's a very good starting point to understand the challenge that we are facing. We had the opportunity of having a number of interactions with the community of Living Labs in Europe and the world in order to understand how the Living Labs in the world were giving an answer to the COVID pandemic. And one of the common features that this Living Lab had was that they are sharing with us that they perceived an autonomous organization of the structures in their cities. And I will explain. For instance, the people that are working in 3D printing eventually started to use those facilities for printing in order to build up these new devices to protect our faces, and in order to provide new tools in order to hold their masks, etc. The people that are working in the hospitals started connecting each other in order to reshare and to organize their delivery processes. The people also that are working in social innovation, and I mean the local public administrations, they started connecting together with no top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach from the public servants. And I bring here this concept of bureaupreneurship that was presented in in the last approach. So I think that the challenge here is to distribute this approach, this decision making into the network. And I connect that with what I was conceptualizing in my previous presentation about this layered approach for the collaboratories. I find essential the network, because only one living lab cannot tackle the problem. And we have to learn, and this is part of the social technologies that we should develop, these networking approaches from a trans topic idea. This is something that we are prototyping in South Catalonia and also in West England with two collaboratory approaches. So I think that one of the most urgent messages that we also received with the COVID approach is that society can organize themselves without the need of an input from the public institutions. This implies that we need to understand how we create mechanisms of mutual trust between the bottom-down approach, the bottom approaches, social organizations, citizens organizations, etc., and also the municipalities, which are leading the smart cities, and to congregate that into new structures that extends the role of the public administration. And I will give you one example, only one example about that that's happening in Spain, that, as you know, one of the countries that has been more hit with this pandemic. When the pandemic was on its top, there was a small village that we're talking about 20,000 people that started organizing themselves in order to identify the needs that they were having in terms of food, in terms of medicines, in terms of assisting the old people, etc. So they were asking to their municipality how they could help them to organize this thing. And of course, there was not a way of doing it, because the reaction has to be so agile, the complexity of the mechanism was so high that we were not ready for that to happen. So this organization created a network that extended to different cities and created this type of collaboratory. They had their own application, their own app, which is called Frena la Curva, slow down the curve, flatten the curve. And from that perspective, it triggered a process of collaboratory that attracted more cities. And this was not led by the government. So from my perspective, we have to learn, and we don't know yet, how to make profit of these bottom-up approaches and how to integrate them dynamically and very agilely into the process of our current cities. Because now everybody has access to the possibility of organization through the internet connection.
네, 감사합니다. 좋은 말씀 계속 들으려면
Thank you very much. We should stay up whole night to listen to your stories to the fullest. So sorry for not giving you enough time to finish up your comments. So I would like to conclude our panel discussion session here. We look forward to a general discussion session following. Thank you very much, and let us now conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, we would like to wrap up the second session regarding the citizen participation for inclusive smart city. I think it was quite insightful, and I think that it warrants a further discussions in the third session. So participating our citizens as well as our students and so forth. So we're going to have a short break and move on to the general discussion. Thank you very much.
Music always embraces an era. It holds the time, space, and scenery of the city that we love.
Seoul is a truly special city. This trail is an old railroad track that, instead of being torn down, was completely reformed. The city has created a sense of ease and romance I had forgotten, and it surprises me every time I experience it.
You see? What another perfect reason to stay.
I moved to Seoul and now live and work here. I was very impressed with this culture that maintains original aspects while adding a new sense.
It's because empathy is what matters. People-centered values that prioritize the happiness of everyone are found across Seoul, where past traditions in the present coexist.
That warm feeling. Isn't that a great reason to live in Seoul?
I think Seoul is filled with more energy than any other city. Such energy becomes the possibilities of the future. Various attempts to connect individuals and businesses create new business opportunities, and it makes Seoul a city where creative investments are possible with advanced 5G technologies. More creative,
more dynamic,
more refreshing,
and more passionate city.
Seoul, a special city for you and me. I saw you.
그렇게 모두의 여행은 닫혀 있었다. 이제 우리가 가까워질 시간.
어서 와요. 서울에 온 걸 환영해요.
봤어요? 먼저 서울 스타일로 변신. 어때요?
같이 걸을까요? 서울의 이야기를 조용히 들어봐요.
짠! 이번엔 짜릿한 서울을 즐길 시간. 배고프겠다. 서울 맛집으로 내가 안내할게요.
많이 기다렸죠? 대신 더 특별한 서울을 보여줄게요.
같이 보고 싶다. 우와. 함께 할 거죠? 약속.
여행이 시작되면 첫 번째 목적지는 서울이 되길 바랍니다.
서울에서 만나요.
See you in Seoul. I saw you.
네, 2020 서울 스마트 시티 리더
Yes, so 2020 Seoul Smart City Leaders Forum is now going to move on to the last session, which is the general discussions. So we will have Mr. Kim Gak-sam, who is the president of the Smart City Committee, who will be moderating this session. He's joining us virtually. Hello. Thank you very much for being here with us until the end of today's session. What were your impressions of today's conference? Yeah, so inclusive smart city has become a national agenda, and we've heard very interesting talks about the inclusiveness as well as the concept of smart city. We were able to share different experiences, and I believe that we're seeing a lot of developments in this field. And I believe that it is very important that we share different case studies of smart cities of different cities. Now, let us now move on to the general discussion. So we were supposed to actually end at 7. We don't have much time left, but maybe I'm going to speed up. And in order to become a successful smart city, I think that the role of every stakeholder is very important. And somebody asked, what is the role of the citizens in developing an inclusive smart city? So maybe we can entertain remarks from our panelists regarding this question.
네, 지정 없이 자율적으로 답변을 드리면 될까요?
Well, so you don't designate any specific person, right?
Professor Fernando, please give us an answer according to the question.
Thank you. If I'm correct, the question is about which is the role that citizens can have in this inclusive approach for smart cities. Okay, along with my presentation and also with the questions also to asked by Director Kim Hee-dae and the rest of the participants, I tried to give a narrative for this answer. And this answer is that inclusion needs mechanisms for that inclusion to happen. These mechanisms are based on tools, and these tools are artificial intelligence, are, for instance, the IoT, etc. These are the hard technologies. But in order to these technologies to allow people to do something in terms of not being factors, but actors in the process of the smart city, we need these social technologies as a layer, underlying layer. And this is here in the social technologies where Living Lab approaches. So my view from the Living Lab perspective is that citizens should be included into the second zero of the innovation process. That means that it will not help for inclusion if we are developing the program of a smart city and then we ask the citizens to participate and to engage into the process. Of course, citizens are not being able to do the planning, the global planning. We need experts, architects, engineers to do that. But they can participate in the decision making in order to show also their preferences and the views for the co-creation of the actions. So I think that this is the main role, to participate from second zero as actors and not factors of the final development and design for the innovation and for the decisions taken related to innovation processes.
네, 감사합니다. 아마 리빙 이 강의가 중요한데
Thank you very much. Living Lab matters.
많이 해야 될 것 같고
And citizens' participation is important to propose ideas.
학생들이 참여하고 있는데요.
Well, we are also joined by students.
질문하실 분이 누군지 지정해서 해주셔도 되고요. 오픈해서
We can have an open discussion session, or either you can designate one specific student to listen to his or her opinion.
윤한빈님.
네.
네, 함께 하시면서 혹시 궁금한
So, Ms. Yoon Han-bin, do you have any questions to any of our speakers?
네, 저는 페르난도 빌라리뇨 의장님께 질문을
Yes,
드리고
I have a
싶은데요.
question to
저는 서울 디지털
Professor
대학과
Villarino.
관악구에서 함께 진행하는 주민 기획단
Well,
활동을
there's
통해서
a project
포항동
initiative of
스마트시티에
Seoul
관심을 가지게
Digital
되었고
Foundation,
그래서 오늘 지휘자로 참여하게
in which
된
I am
윤한빈이라고 합니다.
engaged, and as a result, I came to have many interest in smart city, and I was told that many cities are carrying out smart city initiatives, and I assume that those kind of initiatives are to provide many services with the marginalized people of the society. So what kind of project, what kind of services can we can we imagine? And could you please elaborate on that?
Okay, thank you very much. I know that we have little time, but I will give you just one example, for instance, regarding that. I'm following the last comment. Yes, the role of the citizens is in providing ideas, but not only in providing ideas, but in participating into the decision processes. And this is the game changer. The participation into the decision processes. For instance, in one region of Spain, in Navarra, they are developing this from patient to protagonist, in which the association of patients are working together with the public government of Navarra region in order to restructure the services provided by the health service, by the regional health service, in order to create a pathway, to create a journey for the patient, but not also for the patient, the person who is ill, but also for the families, so that they can create new services in order to, for instance, to adapt the mobility in the cities, in order to create new places for enjoying their spare time, etc. So this is a global approach in which citizens take part of the decision process.
Thank you very much for your comments. 네, 그럼 제가 질문을 조금 드리고자 하는데요.
So I would like to also ask a question. So we have the moderators for session 1 and 2, and I don't think that we heard your ideas or your thoughts. So while leading the first session, what was your impression, the moderator? Yes, I was the moderator. I am Lee Young-seok from Seoul National University. I'm not going to limit my remarks to just session 1. I'm going to provide overall remarks. So, if session 1 focused on a citizen as a passive stakeholder in embracing inclusiveness, in session 2, we consider citizens as an active stakeholder or active actor, active player. And we also heard cases of China, Indonesia, Spain, and Europe. And I think that, we were able to compare the cases of Europe, Korea, Indonesia, or China. Regardless of whether a country is advanced or not, it was quite interesting to learn that there are lots of experiments taking place. And I was very happy to meet Professor Iwan virtually. And I hope that I'll be able to meet Professor Fernando in person later on. So these are some of the thoughts that I would like to share. And of course, we did not have enough time to address two sides of the coin, but I think that it was quite meaningful. What about the second session?
Well, being here, Professor Lee, the chairperson of the first session, and Professor Kim, the chairperson of the second session, I would like to ask this probably aggressive question. Well, concerning diverse types of smart cities, including inclusive smart city, but what I felt was that there are many different approaches to smart city. But compared to overseas cases, including European cases, but our professors in Korea, well, I am curious to know what has been the role of professors of universities in Korea. This is kind of criticism. I'm sorry. So, concerning inclusive smart city, what kind of academic efforts have been made by universities, and what would you like to do in the future? Well, I tried to put as much as possible my efforts into these initiatives, but chances didn't come to me. Well, it is true that the academia should have been more active and proactive to learn more about the smart city. Well, speaking of which, yes, I become very much humbled, even though I tried many things, but the achievement was not satisfactory. And what makes me humbler is that to get to know about the inclusiveness of a society, we have been remaining passive, not active. There are many approaches, business approaches or business opportunities to inclusiveness, but we pretty much ignored that part. But inclusiveness can create more business opportunities, and I should have captured that. And that makes me humble. So that's my answer. And I wanted to ask a question to Professor Kim Gap-soo, virtually connected, but I think it would be better, more efficient to ask this question to Professor Lee, just next to me, seated, because he had tried many different initiatives on smart city and inclusive smart city and living lab as well. So what are the efforts made by universities, and what is your plan? Well, Yonsei University runs diverse social entrepreneur programs, for example, in cooperation with SK. So Happiness Together program is the representative one. And also, it was 2 years ago that we cooperated with Barcelona and New York, and we got gathered in Sam Factory to run a social initiative program that is one of the international cooperative programs. So in a sense, we have been nurturing and fostering future smart citizens, and those smart citizens are part of an innovative process. As Professor Fernando has commented on this, yes, it is about process. So during the process, we try to foster smart citizens, not as mere participants, but as idea proposers and actors. And in that sense, the role of the university is very much important, and the importance of university will be growing continuously. Thank you very much, and I would like to hand over the microphone to the moderator.
Thank you very much, panelists, for your remarks. Can you repeat what you said? I believe that we're having some audio quality issues. I would like to address my question first to Dr. Lee, actually the student, who's Ms. Lee Young. If she can ask a question to the speakers. Hello, I am Lee Young. I have a question for Professor Iwan. In order for a sustainable smart city, we say that citizen participation is the key. And in order to promote citizen participation, what are some ideas that you have?
Thank you very much for the question from Union. So in terms of sustainable development and also the participation, what kind of idea that I can share for you? I think, the most important that the willingness of the people. I can tell you in Indonesian context, because normally we in the planning process to get more participate during the proposals, the collection from the people, and it is done annually with the same procedure. So people get bored because they know that what they have been proposed in terms of urban development for specific project will only be kind of a proposal, not the reality. I mean, not for the the real activity, the reality in the real world. Only proposals. So with this, with the innovation in e-planning, so the people can check, whether the proposal has been approved or not, and if it is not approved, and then what will be happen for the next year. So this is very, very important to encourage people to check by themselves within this process, which is previously not been done. That the people cannot check even, until what level the proposal has been proposed into different level up to the city level. So the most important that to encourage people to get more involved in the participation process by doing this kind of self-checking for their proposals. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 들리시나요?
네, 잘 들립니다.
Yes, can you hear me?
제가 뭐 마무리 겸 말씀드리면
So I'd like to provide a wrap-up comment.
우리가 이제 그 스마트 도시를 하자라고
So developing an inclusive smart city is not easy. There are lots of stakeholders, and of course it is very important to take into account the users of the smart city. So that is, we also have to include the marginalized and the vulnerable group. That is why developing and promoting inclusive smart city is very important. And when I give lectures, I often get the question about how we're going to address the problem of divide and marginalization, and how we're going to actually embrace smart city, embrace the vulnerable in the development of smart cities. So this is the kind of question that I often get. And a lot of people have very rosy picture about the smart city. And of course, some people say that the government is intervening too much in the developing of smart cities. But of course, the situation is very different among different countries and cities. And the technology is a fundamental element in smart cities, but that is not everything. We have to take into consideration other elements as well. And with the development and the emergence of fourth industrial revolution technologies, it is very, very important to embrace and fully understand these technologies before implementing them in smart city projects.
Thank you very much for wrapping up our session so perfectly. Well, all panelists, speakers, and discussants, and moderators, we would like to thank you deeply for your hard work. Well, yes, we feel sorry for not having enough time for a general discussion session, but it is now time to conclude. Well, on the backside of an advanced city, we have the marginalized, and we need to take care of them. So an inclusive smart city that embraces all marginalized people, that concept should be evolved to be a city where everybody can be happy. And this city cannot be born naturally. We need to make it happen. Well, during the past 2 days, we have been with the 2020 Seoul City Leaders Forum, and I wish that that was meaningful 2 days for all of you, and I look forward to see the future landscape of Seoul as a leading smart city. And thank you very much for being with us, and we would like to see you again next year with more substantial subjects. I was Lee Seung-hee. Thank you.